the namesake of our plantation, the magnolia tree on my left-hand side. If you're sitting backwards, it's going to be your right-hand side. Now, the magnolia tree is known for its waxy, shiny leaves. You can kind of see it right there. Now, it is part of the evergreen family, so it can grow to about 80 feet tall. In the springtime, late spring, closer to summer, it'll start to bloom this beautiful white flower. Now, some of our trees already have the buds on them, but some of them don't. And this flower is going to be about the size of your fist. Now, it is extremely delicate, just like I am. So if you were to rub the flower for about 30 to 45 seconds, it would already start to turn brown and fall apart in your hair. Now, later in the fall, closer to winter, it'll produce a seed pod. Now, this seed pod is going to be a vibrant red color, and our birds absolutely love these seeds. They'll eat them up and carry them all around the plantation, dropping them as they go. That's why we have so many magnolia trees here today. But I would like to draw your attention over to the left-hand side, so sitting backwards to the right-hand side. Now, this is going to be a Virginia live oak tree. You're going to see plenty of Virginia live oak trees today, but this tree is special for two different reasons. The first being, it is the oldest tree we have on this plantation, estimated to be anywhere from 400 to 500 years old. So it is an old tree. But as we're going forward, you might notice that there is a hollow in this tree. And that's going to be completely normal for Virginia live oak trees. But what's not normal about this tree is it has bricks inside of it. Now, that is because in the 1700s, somebody decided to use this tree as a fire pit. They ended up lining the tree with bricks, and they would light it in the winter months to stay warm, and in the summer months to fend off mosquitoes. Now, just beyond that tree line over there is going to be the Ashley River. You can't really see it. It kind of just looks like a lot of brown grass, but I can assure you it is over there. And where that white building is with all this action going on, this is going to be the Drayton's old carriage house. That's where they would store their carriages and their horses. Nowadays, we use it as a wedding venue. Now, I believe we have 2 weddings going on today, and just yesterday we had about 3 or 4. We have plenty of weddings that happen here every single day. We have up to 5 weddings in just one day. Over to my left-hand side, those brown buildings, they are going to be the bridal suites, where the brides go to get ready for their big day. Now, there is one particular area that we'll drive down later in the tour if you stick with me, but this area is called the Pavilion of Oaks, and there's going to be lots of weddings that happen there at the exact same time. So that's going to be really nerve-wracking for those brides and grooms. Now, we are the oldest romantic garden, and that's why we get so many couples coming here to get married. But this plantation does have a bit of history, so I'm going to jump into the history of this area as well as this plantation. So, the original colony that was here was called Albemarle Point. Albemarle Point was located on the west bank of the Ashley River, hence West Ashley. But Albemarle Point did not last very long because by the early 1700s, the name and the location changed. It ended up changing to the peninsula, you know, as downtown Charleston. But the name wasn't Charleston yet, it was Charlestown after King Charles II. And they named it that to honor him. Now, by the 1780s, though, it ended up adopting the name Charleston. And there's a lot of different theories as to why it changed to Charleston. And a lot of historians have went back and forth saying it, it could have been a change in dialect or accent, or there was a lot of people passing through here, so it could have been something to do with that, or a simple mistake on paper. But either way, by the 1780s, they ended up changing the name to Charleston. Now, in order to understand this area just a little bit more, I'm going to jump across the pond to England in 1649. Now, in 1649 was the end of a very long civil war in England, and that is because of a man named Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell wanted to make England into its very first republic, and in 1649, he ended up killing King Charles I by execution, and he ended up running things for quite some time, for about 9 years. He lived until 1658. So he only really ran this new republic for about 9 years. So everybody in England, they were so used to this monarchy for so long, it's all they've ever known. And now they have this new republic that's been introduced for the past 9 years, but now he's gone, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what political power they want in place. Well, King Charles II knew exactly what he wanted, and he wanted his throne back. So he was in exile for quite some time after the death of his father, and he was living in all different places, France, Scotland, Ireland. But eventually he came back to the throne thanks to the help of 8 men. These 8 men are going to be called the Lord Proprietors. Now, the Lord Proprietors were extremely wealthy and powerful men. And the man that ended up running this area was named Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper. Now, he gave them land in order to thank them because, again, he didn't have a lot of money, but he did have land, so he created the Carolina Charter of 1663. Now, this charter granted them land from the Virginia colonies all the way down to St. Augustine, Florida, from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. That was considered the Carolinas. Now, again, the man that resided over this area was Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper. Both our rivers are named after him, the Ashley River and the Cooper River. Now, he ended up meeting a man in 1679. This man was named Stephen Fox. Now, Stephen Fox was a tanner from Barbados. And after hearing of this Carolina Charter in 1663, he thought this was the perfect opportunity to continue to grow his trade. Now, he was living in Barbados, and at that time, the plantation, or the island, was being taken over by plantations. There were a lot of sugar plantations, as well as rice plantations, and they required a lot of acreage. And so, Stephen Fox did not have very much land, and when he came here, he saw all these beautiful magnolia trees, and he was just taken aback by the beauty of it. So he decided to buy 402 acres of this area for about 50 sterling. In case you're curious how much that is in today's currency, that's going to be about $60. Now, he ended up moving here with his wife Phyllis, his daughter Anne, and his son-in-law Thomas Drayton Jr. Now, in 1706, Stephen Fox ended up passing away, and up until then he was running it as a cattle ranch or a cattle farm. But when Thomas Drayton Jr. took over, he ended up leaving the plantation to his son-in-law, and that's because women could not own property. He had other ideas for this plantation, because he also grew up in Barbados, and his family were plantation owners, and they ran rice plantations. So if you look over to my left-hand side and my right-hand side, these are going to be old rice fields. Now, they don't really look like it, but that's because rice needs about 3 to 4 feet of water to grow in. The rice that they would grow here was called Carolina gold rice. Now, it got its name because when it was under the water, it was inside of a brown husk, and it kind of shimmered like it was gold when it was under the water. But it also brought in millions of dollars of profit to Charleston. It was one of the largest exports coming out of this area at that time. Now, it would not be Thomas Drayton Jr. and his family in these fields. It would be enslaved African Americans, and as long as you could stand in the water, you could work in the water, which meant you would be working from sun up till sundown in these very dangerous waters filled with venomous snakes, alligators, mosquitoes that were carrying malaria, snapping turtles, all types of things. So you would start at a young age working sun up till sundown in these waters, and it was very dangerous conditions to be working in. So their average lifespan was only about 32 to 34 years old. They did not live very long. Now, it would generally be the younger gentleman in the fields, and the older gentleman would be running what is on my right-hand side. This is going to be called a foot dike. Now, a foot dike is used to help control how much water is coming in and out of these rice fields, because it was impertinent that they had 3 to 4 feet of water growing in these fields. And they would use canals coming from the Ashley River to feed or drain these rice fields. And they would use those foot dikes. Now, they weren't made out of metal, they were made out of wood at that time, but we use metal and titanium now because it is much stronger and more durable. But on my left-hand side, this is going to be another previous rice field. We call this area Ravenswood Pond. It is home to plenty of critters. Now, all this green stuff on top of the water, you can see kind of lines coming in and out of this area. Those are going to be from our alligators. They leave tracks in this green stuff. Now, in this pond alone, we have upwards to about 100 alligators, and that's just this pond. As for the rest of the 60 acres that we own, I haven't the slightest clue, but I'm guessing it's a lot more than 100. Now, look very closely at this green stuff, which I'm going to call duckweed. It's called duckweed. It is a microflower. Our alligators love to use it to camouflage in, so you might see one of their heads sticking out of the duckweed at some point. Now, you might also see this island, and the one right behind it too, it's going to be filled with a whole bunch of white birds. Now, those white birds are going to be the great egret and the snowy egret. Now, the filled with lime green coloring near their eyes, and they have this plumage on their back that they show off during mating season, almost like a peacock would. Now, it didn't only attract the mate, though. It also attracted the women's fashion industry in the early 1900s. That's because women's hats were all the rage, and putting feathers in their hats was a sign of elegance and prosperity. So these birds were hunted to nearly extinction until a man named John James Audubon was able to put a protection in place over these birds. They are now the symbol of the National Audubon Society. Now, over on my left-hand side, there's going to be a panel full of turtles. Now, those turtles are going to be yellow-bellied spiders. They're going to be your average house pet you can get at a pet store, but these guys in an environment like this, they can get to the size of a basketball. They can get quite large. I should mention all this green stuff on the water being duckweed. Now, duckweed is a microflower. It's probably one of the smallest flowers you can find on Earth, and it's a great sign that the ecosystem is thriving. And that's because it helps prevent toxins from coming into the water. It also provides food for ducks and other amphibians. And it's just a great sign that the ecosystem is doing well. But if you have too much duckweed in any one area, it could be